The vase didn't just fall. It slipped. 1 second it was resting perfectly on the polished edge of the marble console table, delicate, hand-painted porcelain catching the afternoon light from the penthouse windows. The next second it tilted, and time slowed. Her fingers brushed against it too late. Porcelain met gravity. The sound wasn't loud at first, just a soft scrape, a fragile warning. Then, impact. The crack echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Porcelain exploded across Italian marble floors. White shards skidding in every direction. A painted blue dragon split clean through the center, its body torn in half. Silence followed. Heavy. Suffocating. The other housekeepers froze mid-step. One held a stack of towels suspended in midair. Another stood with her cleaning cart half-turned, eyes wide. She couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. In her ears. In her fingertips. No, 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 no. She dropped to her knees instantly, trembling hands hovering over the shattered pieces like she could reverse time by touching them. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking before anyone had even spoken. Footsteps thundered down the corridor. The hotel manager appeared, red-faced and already furious, as if he had been waiting for something like this to happen. "What did you do?" he barked. The words cracked sharper than the porcelain. It slipped. I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to?" His voice rose with each syllable. "Do you even know what that was?" She shook her head. Fear had stolen her voice. "That vase was imported. One of a kind. Worth more than you'll earn in 20 years working here." The words hit harder than the floor. 20 years. Her mother's hospital bills flashed in her mind. The overdue rent notice on her kitchen table. The envelope she hadn't opened because she already knew it was red. "I'll pay for it," she blurted out even though they both knew she couldn't. The manager laughed, a cold, humiliating sound. "With what?" Other staff members lowered their eyes. No one moved. No one defended her. Because in this hotel mistakes weren't forgiven. They were erased. "Call security," the manager snapped. 2 guards appeared at the end of the hall, walking with slow, deliberate steps. Not rushed. Not sympathetic. Just procedural. Her hands began shaking harder. "Not again. Not another job." "I'm sorry," she repeated, her voice shrinking with every word. "Please. I didn't." And then the atmosphere changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that. A presence. At the end of the corridor stood a man none of them had noticed before. Tall. Impeccably dressed. Dark suit tailored to precision. No raised voice. No visible anger. He had been watching. Not the vase. Her. His expression was unreadable. Controlled. Analytical. The manager immediately straightened. "Sir," he said nervously. "This is unacceptable. She will be terminated immediately." The man didn't respond right away. Instead, he stepped forward slowly, shoes echoing against marble fragments. He stopped a few feet from her, looking down as she knelt among the shattered porcelain. She felt his gaze before she met it. Calm. Heavy. Assessing. He spoke softly. "Did you do it on purpose?" The question sliced through everything. She forced herself to look up at him. "No," she whispered. "I would never." He held her stare a second longer than necessary. Not searching for guilt. Searching for something else. The manager interrupted impatiently. "It doesn't matter. The damage is done. She's fired." Pause. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he said evenly, "Don't." The hallway went still again. The manager blinked. "Sir? I'll handle this." No explanation. No raised voice. No anger. Just authority. The security guard stopped mid-step. The manager swallowed. She felt something colder than fear settle in her stomach. If she wasn't being fired, then what was he going to do? The man glanced once more at the broken vase. Then back at her. Measured. Calculating. She thought he was about to ruin her life. She had no idea. He already owned it. Cut to black. Before the vase shattered. Her life already felt like it was balancing on the edge of something fragile. She lived in a one-room apartment at the edge of the city, where the paint peeled from the ceiling and the plumbing groaned louder than the traffic outside. The rent was overdue by 2 weeks. The landlord had slid a folded notice under her door that morning, polite in wording, unforgiving in meaning. Final reminder. She hadn't opened it again. Because she didn't need to. She already knew. Every morning she woke before sunrise. Not because she wanted to. Because anxiety didn't let her sleep past 4:30 a.m. The first thing she did was check her phone. Hospital updates. Her mother's condition had been stable. Stable in the way doctors say when they mean fragile but not dying today. The treatments weren't cheap. The insurance barely covered half. The rest was her responsibility. And then there was the student loan. She had once believed education would lift her out of poverty. Instead, it had given her a framed certificate she couldn't use, and a monthly payment she couldn't ignore. So she worked. Every shift. Every extra hour. Every call-in. She couldn't afford the bus fare most days. So she walked. 45 minutes from her apartment to the luxury hotel where marble floors gleamed brighter than her future. She walked past storefronts that displayed handbags worth more than her yearly salary. Past restaurants where one dinner equaled her mother's weekly medication. By the time she arrived, her shoes were already worn thin. But her uniform? Perfect. Pressed. Clean. Flawless. Because in that hotel, appearance was everything. And mistakes were fatal. The hotel prided itself on excellence. 5-star service. Zero tolerance. Discretion above all else. Guests didn't complain twice. Employees didn't either. She had been on probation for 3 months. One complaint. One mistake. One unhappy VIP. And she would be terminated without severance. She knew the policy by heart. She had memorized it the way she memorized guest preferences. Room 2104, allergic to lavender. Room 1807, requests bottled water at exactly 8:15 p.m. Penthouse suite, no knock. Enter only after confirmation. She studied details the way other people studied textbooks. Because this job wasn't just employment. It was survival. And the manager knew it. He never liked her. Not because she was bad at her job. Because she was too quiet. Too careful. Too unwilling to flirt with powerful guests for extra tips. Too unwilling to bend rules when it benefited him. He preferred staff who laughed loudly and agreed quickly. She did neither. That morning before the incident, he had stopped her in the staff hallway. His voice was low, measured, artificially calm. "Be careful today," he said, adjusting his tie. "We have important guests." She nodded. "I always am." His eyes narrowed slightly. "VIP guests are sensitive," he added. "And I won't tolerate embarrassment." The message wasn't subtle. "You're replaceable." She bowed her head slightly and continued walking, her pulse already accelerating. Hope. That's what she carried with her every shift. Hope that today would be smooth. Hope that no one would complain. Hope that she could make it one more week. But hope in places like that was thin. By midday, the pressure had already settled behind her eyes. The penthouse suite had requested early cleaning. The marble floors reflected everything, even insecurity. She moved carefully, methodically, dusting, wiping, straightening. She noticed the vase immediately. Tall, elegant, painted with intricate blue patterns that looked ancient. She gave it space. She always gave expensive things space. But the cartwheel caught slightly on the edge of the rug. A barely noticeable shift. Her elbow brushed the console. And the world tipped. But long before porcelain hit marble, her life had already been cracking. Because when you are poor, you don't get room for accidents. You get consequences. After the hallway confrontation, after the billionaire's quiet intervention, she was told to wait in a small administrative office. No one offered water. No one reassured her. The manager returned 20 minutes later with a single sheet of paper. Termination of employment. Effective immediately. Reason, gross negligence. She stared at the words as if they were written in another language. He said he would handle it, she whispered. The manager smiled without warmth. And he did. 2 security guards appeared again. Procedure. She wasn't allowed back to the staff locker room alone. One guard watched as she removed her name tag. It felt like peeling off identity. Other employees pretended not to stare. But they did. Whispers traveled faster than dignity. She broke something expensive. I heard it was worth millions. She was already on probation. The walk through the lobby was the longest of her life. Guests sipped coffee and scrolled through their phones, unaware that someone's livelihood was dissolving in front of them. The marble floors felt colder now. The revolving doors opened. And just like that, she was outside. No final paycheck in hand. No recommendation letter. No explanation beyond policy. Her phone buzzed. Another hospital reminder. Payment due. Her chest tightened. She didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of the glass building that had decided she was disposable. She folded the termination letter slowly, carefully, as if handling something fragile. Because that paper wasn't just a notice. It was eviction. It was unpaid medication. It was hunger. And the worst part? She hadn't even meant to touch the vase. A single accident had rewritten her entire future. And somewhere above her, behind tinted penthouse glass, a silent man was watching the city. Watching consequences unfold. Watching her walk away. She wasn't fired for breaking a vase. She was erased. She had walked 3 blocks from the hotel before her phone vibrated. Unknown number. For a moment she almost ignored it. Bad news rarely arrived from known contacts. It rang again. She answered. Hello. Return to the hotel, a calm male voice instructed. 5th floor. Executive offices. The line disconnected. No explanation. No greeting. Her pulse began to rise again. 5th floor wasn't for staff. It was for ownership. For people who didn't introduce themselves. For decisions that didn't get reversed. She stood there on the sidewalk, termination letter still folded in her hand. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were reconsidering. Maybe. Or maybe it was worse. She turned back. The elevator ride to the 5th floor was silent. No music. No chatter. Just the soft hum of machinery lifting her toward something she couldn't name. When the doors opened, the air felt different. Thicker. Carpeted floors absorbed footsteps. The walls were darker. The lighting softer, intentional. A receptionist didn't look surprised to see her. He's expecting you, she said quietly. Of course he was. The office doors opened without a knock. He stood by the window. The same man from the hallway. Tailored suit. Hands clasped behind his back. City skyline stretching beneath him like something he owned. Maybe he did. He didn't turn immediately when she entered. He let the silence sit first. Power doesn't rush. Finally he spoke. Sit. It wasn't unkind. It wasn't warm either. She remained standing. I was terminated, she said carefully. I don't understand why I'm here. Now he turned. His gaze was steady. You broke my vase. The word "my" shifted something. It hadn't belonged to the hotel. It had belonged to him. I'm sorry, she said again, though the apology felt smaller this time. I know, he replied. That unsettled her more than anger would have. He walked to his desk and picked up a folder. Do you know what it was worth? She swallowed. The manager said. I'm not asking what he said. She hesitated. No. He studied her face. Good. The word landed softly. Intentionally. He closed the folder. I don't enjoy involving authorities in matters that can be handled privately. Her stomach dropped. Authorities. I didn't mean to break it, she said quickly. It was an accident. I believe you. Another unexpected answer. He stepped closer now. Not threatening. Not gentle. Just closer. However, he continued, the value of that item requires compensation. Her throat tightened. I don't have that kind of money. I'm aware. Pause. There is an alternative. There it was. The condition. I own an estate outside the city, he said evenly. Minimal staff. I require additional assistance temporarily. Her confusion deepened. You want me to clean? I want you to work. For how long? Until the debt is satisfied. Debt. The word echoed heavier than it should have. I was fired, she said. I don't have transport. I need another job. This is a job. No, she replied quietly. It's repayment. His eyes sharpened slightly. You prefer legal charges? The room felt colder. If you don't accept, he continued calmly, legal proceedings will move forward. Property damage. Negligence. Her chest tightened. A lawsuit would destroy her. Hospital bills. Rent. Court fees. She wouldn't survive it. You're giving me no choice, she said. His expression didn't change. I'm giving you an option. Silence stretched between them. Power imbalance complete. Finally she nodded. When do I start? Tomorrow. The estate was an hour outside the city. Iron gates. Stone pillars. A driveway long enough to swallow hesitation. The house itself was less a home and more an architectural statement. Sharp lines. Glass walls. Minimal warmth. Security cameras dotted the exterior discreetly but unmistakably. She noticed them immediately. There were only 3 other staff members. All quiet. All efficient. All careful. Schedules were printed to the minute. Breakfast at 7 o'clock. Grounds inspection at 8:15. Inventory review at 10 o'clock. No improvisation. No noise. No mistakes. The atmosphere wasn't chaotic. It was controlled. Inside, everything was immaculate. Furniture positioned with mathematical precision. Surfaces spotless. Even the silence felt deliberate. The first time he corrected her, it was over a napkin. You folded it unevenly. She glanced down. The difference was nearly invisible. I'm sorry. Precision matters. He didn't raise his voice. He never did. That was worse. Days passed. He noticed everything. You limp slightly when you're tired. She froze. I'm fine. You favor your right foot. The sole is thinner. He wasn't wrong. How do you know that? She asked before she could stop herself. I observe. He stood close when he spoke. Too close. Not touching. Never touching. But near enough that she felt it. Once he handed her a file. Their fingers almost brushed. He withdrew first. She couldn't tell if it was restraint or calculation. And then there were the details he shouldn't have known. Your mother's next appointment is Friday, he said one afternoon, scanning documents. She went still. How do you? You requested Thursday off. That doesn't explain. He didn't answer. Later that night in the staff quarters, she stared at her phone. Her address. Her mother's hospital. Her probation record. How much did he know? How much had he looked into? Was this employment? Or surveillance? Midweek, she carried a stack of documents down the hallway and slowed when she heard voices from the study. 2 men. Lawyers. Insurance already processed the claim, one said. Full coverage? Yes. He didn't lose a cent. Her heartbeat stumbled. Insurance. The Vase. Full coverage. Didn't lose a cent. She stood frozen outside the door. Then footsteps approached. She moved quickly before she was seen. But the words followed her. Didn't lose a cent. That night she couldn't sleep. If the damage cost him nothing, then what exactly was she repaying? The next morning she found him in the library. Sunlight filtered across dark shelves. He stood reading, expression composed as ever. She didn't ask permission this time. If you didn't lose anything, she said steadily, why am I still paying? He closed the book slowly. Looked at her. Measured her. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. Finally. You're not paying for the vase. The words fell heavier than accusation. For a moment, neither of them moved. And in that silence, something shifted. She had walked 3 blocks from the hotel before her phone vibrated. A known number. For a moment she almost ignored it. Bad news rarely arrived from known contacts. It rang again. She answered. Hello. Return to the hotel, a calm male voice instructed. 5th floor. Executive offices. The line disconnected. No explanation. No greeting. Her pulse began to rise again. 5th floor wasn't for staff. It was for ownership. For people who didn't introduce themselves. For decisions that didn't get reversed. She stood there on the sidewalk, termination letter still folded in her hand. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were reconsidering. Maybe. Or maybe it was worse. She turned back. The elevator ride to the 5th floor was silent. No music. No chatter. Just the soft hum of machinery lifting her toward something she couldn't name. When the doors opened, the air felt different. Thicker. Carpeted floors absorbed footsteps. The walls were darker. The lighting softer, intentional. A receptionist didn't look surprised to see her. He's expecting you, she said quietly. Of course he was. The office doors opened without a knock. He stood by the window. The same man from the hallway. Tailored suit. Hands clasped behind his back. City skyline stretching beneath him like something he owned. Maybe he did. He didn't turn immediately when she entered. He let the silence sit first. Power doesn't rush. Finally he spoke. Sit. It wasn't unkind. It wasn't warm either. She remained standing. I was terminated, she said carefully. I don't understand why I'm here. Now he turned. His gaze was steady. You broke my vase. The word "my" shifted something. It hadn't belonged to the hotel. It had belonged to him. I'm sorry, she said again, though the apology felt smaller this time. I know, he replied. That unsettled her more than anger would have. He walked to his desk and picked up a folder. Do you know what it was worth? She swallowed. The manager said. I'm not asking what he said. She hesitated. No. He studied her face. Good. The word landed softly. Intentionally. He closed the folder. I don't enjoy involving authorities in matters that can be handled privately. Her stomach dropped. Authorities. I didn't mean to break it, she said quickly. It was an accident. I believe you. Another unexpected answer. He stepped closer now. Not threatening. Not gentle. just closer. However, he continued, the value of that item requires compensation. Her throat tightened. I don't have that kind of money. I'm aware. Pause. There is an alternative. There it was. The condition. I own an estate outside the city, he said evenly. Minimal staff. I require additional assistance temporarily. Her confusion deepened. You want me to clean? I want you to work. For how long? Until the debt is satisfied. Debt. The word echoed heavier than it should have. I was fired, she said. I don't have transport. I need another job. This is a job. No, she replied quietly. It's repayment. His eyes sharpened slightly. You prefer legal charges? The room felt colder. If you don't accept, he continued calmly, legal proceedings will move forward. Property damage. Negligence. Her chest tightened. A lawsuit would destroy her. Hospital bills. Rent. Court fees. She wouldn't survive it. You're giving me no choice, she said. His expression didn't change. I'm giving you an option. Silence stretched between them. Power imbalance complete. Finally she nodded. When do I start? Tomorrow. The estate was an hour outside the city. Iron gates. Stone pillars. A driveway long enough to swallow hesitation. The house itself was less a home and more an architectural statement. Sharp lines. Glass walls. Minimal warmth. Security cameras dotted the exterior discreetly but unmistakably. She noticed them immediately. There were only 3 other staff members. All quiet. All efficient. All careful. Schedules were printed to the minute. Breakfast at 7 o'clock. Grounds inspection at 8:15. Inventory review at 10 o'clock. No improvisation. No noise. No mistakes. The atmosphere wasn't chaotic. It was controlled. Inside, everything was immaculate. Furniture positioned with mathematical precision. Surfaces spotless. Even the silence felt deliberate. The first time he corrected her, it was over a napkin. You folded it unevenly. She glanced down. The difference was nearly invisible. I'm sorry. Precision matters. He didn't raise his voice. He never did. That was worse. Days passed. He noticed everything. You limp slightly when you're tired. She froze. I'm fine. You favor your right foot. The sole is thinner. He wasn't wrong. How do you know that? She asked before she could stop herself. I observe. He stood close when he spoke. Too close. Not touching. Never touching. But near enough that she felt it. Once he handed her a file. Their fingers almost brushed. He withdrew first. She couldn't tell if it was restraint or calculation. And then there were the details he shouldn't have known. Your mother's next appointment is Friday, he said one afternoon, scanning documents. She went still. How do you? You requested Thursday off. That doesn't explain. He didn't answer. Later that night in the staff quarters she stared at her phone. Her address. Her mother's hospital. Her probation record. How much did he know? How much had he looked into? Was this employment? Or surveillance? Midweek, she carried a stack of documents down the hallway and slowed when she heard voices from the study. 2 men. Lawyers. Insurance already processed the claim, one said. Full coverage? Yes. He didn't lose a cent. Her heartbeat stumbled. Insurance. The Vase. Full coverage. Didn't lose a cent. She stood frozen outside the door. Then footsteps approached. She moved quickly before she was seen. But the words followed her. Didn't lose a cent. That night she couldn't sleep. If the damage cost him nothing, then what exactly was she repaying? The next morning she found him in the library. Sunlight filtered across dark shelves. He stood reading, expression composed as ever. She didn't ask permission this time. If you didn't lose anything, she said steadily, why am I still paying? He closed the book slowly. Looked at her. Measured her. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. Finally. You're not paying for the vase. The words fell heavier than accusation. For a moment, neither of them moved. And in that silence, something shifted. The silence in the library did not feel accidental. It felt deliberate. You're not paying for the vase. His voice was calm, controlled. But there was something beneath it now. Something less mechanical. She didn't move. Then what am I paying for? She asked. He held her gaze longer this time. Not to intimidate. To decide. Finally, he gestured toward the chair across from him. Sit. This time she did. The room felt different. Less like a workplace. More like a negotiation. I've been auditing the hotel for the past 6 months, he began. The word auditing sounded clinical. Harmless. It wasn't. Why? She asked. Because profits were rising. But integrity was not. Pause. Staff theft. Manipulated invoices. Preferential treatment for certain guests. Discretion used as a shield. Her stomach tightened. The manager? She whispered. His jaw shifted slightly. He is under investigation. The information didn't land gently. It rearranged everything. The Vase incident, he continued, accelerated matters. Her breath caught. Accelerated, what? My evaluation. She frowned. I don't understand. He walked slowly around the desk, not pacing, measuring. I've been observing employees. There it was again. Observing. Looking for what? She asked. Patterns. He stopped across from her. Integrity is rare under pressure. Her pulse quickened. Are you saying this was a test? No. His answer came quickly. It was an accident. He held her eyes when he said it. But your reaction was not. The room felt smaller. You apologized immediately, he said. You didn't deflect responsibility. You didn't blame equipment. You didn't accuse another employee. She swallowed. I broke it. You accepted consequence before you knew its cost. His voice lowered slightly. You were the only one who didn't look for someone else to blame. The words didn't sound like praise. They sounded like recognition. Something inside her shifted. Fear loosened its grip just enough to allow something else in. Suspicion. You were watching me? She asked. For months. The admission should have terrified her. Instead, it unsettled her in a different way. Room 1807, he continued. You returned a watch worth $12,000. The guest never reported it missing. She stared at him. You refused a $200 tip from a private client. That's against policy, she said quietly. Policy didn't stop others. He continued. You covered 3 shifts for a colleague whose son was hospitalized. She hadn't told anyone about that. How do you know all this? I review everything. His tone remained steady. But something behind it had changed. This wasn't cold surveillance. It was deliberate selection. And the vase? She asked. An accident, he repeated. But revealing. Her chest tightened. So you ruined my life to see how I'd react? His expression sharpened slightly. I didn't ruin it. You fired me. I removed you. Her eyes widened. Removed me from what? A system that would have discarded you eventually. The words hit harder than accusation. Explain. He walked to the window. The estate grounds stretched beyond the glass. Controlled. Ordered. The hotel manager has been diverting assets. Manipulating staff records. Redirecting blame. Her termination letter flashed in her mind. Gross negligence. You needed evidence, she realized. Yes. And I was a variable. The word stung. A pawn? He turned. No. A beat. A constant. Silence again. You were the only variable I didn't need to question. Her emotions tangled together. Fear had given way to suspicion. Suspicion was now bending toward something dangerous. Curiosity. So my firing, she said slowly, was temporary. Shock rippled through her. You destroyed my employment record. I sealed it. She stared. No future employer can see it. It doesn't exist. Her breath caught. You can't just erase things. I can. There was no arrogance in his voice. Just fact. And you own what exactly? She asked carefully. He didn't hesitate this time. The hotel. Her mind stalled. One hotel. All of them. The words didn't rise. They fell. Like gravity. She felt the air shift in her lungs. You own the chain? Yes. The manager. The probation. The policies. All under him. And you didn't tell me? You didn't ask. Her laugh was soft. Disbelieving. You staged my firing. Yes. To protect me? Yes. From what? From retaliation. Her stomach tightened. The manager suspected you, he said. You followed procedure too strictly. You questioned inventory discrepancies. I was doing my job. And that threatened his system. She felt the memory resurface, the warning in the hallway. Be careful today. VIP guests are sensitive. It hadn't been about guests. It had been about her. You couldn't remove him without evidence, she said slowly. Correct. And keeping me there would have exposed you. The realization settled like a weight. So you extracted me. Yes. And forced me here. To control the environment. Her emotions swirled violently. Anger. Relief. Confusion. You manipulated my fear. He didn't deny it. I leveraged urgency. That's the same thing. Not entirely. Their eyes locked. You could have told me, she said. I needed to see who you were without reassurance. The words hung between them. You're impossible, she muttered. He almost smiled. Almost. That was the first crack. That evening dinner was different. Not formal. Not employer-employee. Just two people sitting across a long wooden table. The room was quiet except for the faint clink of silverware. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't review documents. He looked at her. How is your mother? He asked. The question caught her off guard. She's stable. Stable is not healthy. No. He nodded slowly. I arranged for a specialist consultation. Her fork paused midair. You what? It's been scheduled. You had no right. Perhaps. Silence. Why? She asked. His gaze didn't waver. Because you won't ask for help. Her throat tightened. And you would know that how? I observe. The word no longer sounded invasive. It sounded intentional. Their conversation stumbled forward in fragments. Awkward pauses. Measured honesty. He asked about her degree. She asked about his childhood. He answered selectively. But honestly, that was new. And somewhere between the silence and the questions, fear dissolved completely. What replaced it wasn't safety. It was something more dangerous. Connection. Later that night, she stood alone in her room, staring at the ceiling. He owned the hotel. He orchestrated her removal. He protected her. Or controlled her. Or both. Her life hadn't been ruined. It had been redirected. The next morning she confronted him once more. So I wasn't fired, she said carefully. No. I wasn't dismissed. No. Then what was I? He stepped closer. Not threatening. Not retreating. Intentional. You were protected. And that changed everything. Protection. The word lingered long after he said it. Protected. Not dismissed. Not discarded. Not punished. Protected. But protection, she was beginning to understand, had a cost in his world. That evening, rain rolled in over the estate. Slow at first. Then steady. Then relentless. The glass walls of the house reflected stormlight in fractured streaks. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. Less formal. Less rehearsed. He stood in the study, jacket removed, sleeves rolled once at the wrists. The posture of someone who had built something from scratch and never quite learned how to rest inside it. She didn't wait for permission to speak this time. You manipulate outcomes, she said. He didn't look surprised. Yes. You test people. Yes. You orchestrated my fear to measure my reaction. Pause. Yes. The honesty disarmed her more than denial would have. She stepped closer. You treat people like experiments. The words landed clean. No accusation in her tone. Just truth. He didn't flinch. He didn't defend himself. He leaned against the desk slightly, eyes distant for the first time since she had met him. My father owned a small logistics company, he said quietly. The shift caught her off guard. He rarely volunteered personal history. It failed, he continued. Because of the market? No. A beat. Because of trust. He picked up a pen. Rolled it between his fingers. A habit, perhaps, when revisiting something heavy. Employees stole inventory. Manipulated invoices. Diverted contracts. Quietly. His voice remained steady. But something underneath it tightened. My father believed loyalty was earned through kindness. He glanced up at her. He was wrong. The rain intensified against the glass. He lost everything? She asked softly. He lost belief. That was worse. And you? She asked. I learned. Silence settled between them, but this time it wasn't cold. It was reflective. I built my first company at 22, he continued. Alone. No investors who could betray me. No partners who could undercut me. And you never stopped building, she said. No. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The estate. The hotel chain. The empire hidden behind quiet ownership. All because you don't trust people? She asked. All because I verify them. She held his gaze. That's not the same. He almost smiled. Almost. Trust is expensive, he said. Verification is efficient. And lonely. The word slipped out before she could stop it. He went still. She saw it then. The crack. The first real fracture in his composure. I don't know how to trust without testing, he admitted. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't proud. It was exposed. The vulnerability was subtle, controlled, but real. And in that moment she understood something crucial. He wasn't cruel. He was guarded. There was a difference. You watched your father lose everything, she said quietly. So now you try to prevent loss before it happens. Yes. Even if it means hurting people first. His jaw tightened. Yes. The honesty hurt more than deception would have. You didn't just test me, she said. You put me under pressure to see if I would break. You didn't. I was terrified. He didn't argue that. I needed to know, he said. Know what? That you wouldn't compromise under threat. Her breath caught. And if I had? He didn't answer immediately. Then I would have been correct, he said finally. The words lingered between them. A dangerous truth. For a moment neither spoke. The rain softened. And in the quiet, something fragile formed. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. That night dinner felt different again. Not awkward. Not formal. Just quiet. He asked about her childhood. She asked about his mother. He answered in fragments. Careful pieces. But real. She noticed he never exaggerated his accomplishments. Never boasted. Never dramatized. He stated facts. Then moved on. But when he spoke about his father's collapse, his hands stilled. And that was enough. The emotional distance between them narrowed. Slowly. Carefully. Dangerously. And then, the world intruded. It started with a call. He stepped away to take it in the hallway. His voice lowered. Controlled again. She caught only fragments. Leak. Unauthorized access. Who informed him? When he returned, his posture had shifted back to executive precision. What happened? She asked. The former manager has become aware of your presence here. Her stomach dropped. How? Information travels. And? He is claiming impropriety. The word felt poisonous. What does that mean? He has suggested that your termination was reversed due to OI personal involvement. Her face burned. That's not. I know. Does anyone believe him? In matters of power, he said quietly, belief is irrelevant. Perception is sufficient. Her pulse quickened. What is he doing? Threatening litigation. Alleging favoritism. Claiming internal misconduct. The ground beneath her felt unstable again. Media outlets began requesting comment by the next morning. Headlines formed without confirmation. Maid fired, then secretly rehired by owner. Speculation spread faster than facts. Staff at the estate began glancing at her differently. Not accusing, but uncertain. And uncertainty felt like isolation. You should distance yourself from me, she said that night. His eyes sharpened. No. You'll lose credibility. I won't. But I will. He stepped closer. I do not make decisions based on public comfort. That's easy to say when you own everything. The words came out sharper than intended. He didn't react. He rarely did. I will handle it, he said. The same words he had spoken in the hallway the day the vase broke. And suddenly she wasn't sure if that reassured her anymore. 2 nights later she walked past his study and heard voices again. Lawyers. Tension in the air. If this escalates, one of them said carefully, someone will need to absorb liability. Silence. Then his voice. If it escalates, he said evenly, she'll take the blame publicly. The word struck like impact. She froze outside the door. She's already positioned as the catalyst, he continued. It simplifies narrative. Her breath left her lungs. Simplifies narrative. Blame publicly. Her vision blurred. The conversation inside continued, strategic and composed. But she heard nothing else. Because the one person who claimed to protect her was planning to sacrifice her. Again. She stepped back slowly. Quietly. Carefully. Her heart pounded in her ears. Maybe he had never stopped testing her. Maybe this was just another variable. That night she packed. No dramatic confrontation. No tears. Just quiet devastation. She left the uniform folded neatly on the bed. Walked past the security cameras. Through the iron gates. Into the darkness beyond the estate. The rain had stopped. But the air felt heavier than ever. She didn't look back. And inside the study, unaware that she had heard him, he finished his sentence. Because she'll never actually have to. But she was already gone. She didn't take a car. She didn't call a taxi. She walked. The same way she had always walked when things fell apart. Through dark roads. past quiet fields, toward a city that never noticed who entered or left it. Her bag was light. Her chest was not. The words echoed with every step. She'll take the blame publicly. Simplifies narrative. She should have known. He tested people. Measured them. Positioned them. She had just been another variable. Another experiment. By the time she reached her apartment building, the sun was rising. Pale. Unforgiving. The landlord was waiting near the entrance. "You're late on rent," he said without greeting. "I know. You have 3 days." 3 days. She nodded. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than before. The ceiling lower. The air heavier. She placed her bag on the bed and finally allowed herself to sit. Silence filled the room. No security cameras. No marble floors. No controlled environment. Just peeling paint and overdue bills. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number again. She didn't answer. It rang twice more. Then stopped. Minutes later, a notification flashed across her screen. An article. Maid fired for destroying valuable artifact now linked to owner in internal scandal. Her stomach twisted. She opened it. Speculation. Anonymous sources. Insider claims. The former manager had moved quickly. He alleged that she had intentionally damaged the vase to gain the owner's attention. That her reassignment to the estate was evidence of favoritism. That internal records showed negligence. Negligence. The same word printed on her termination letter. A knock came at the door. Sure. Official. She opened it slowly. A courier stood there holding a sealed envelope. Legal correspondence. Her hands trembled as she signed. Inside. Notice of civil liability. Property damage claim. The amount was astronomical. She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the numbers until they blurred. He said he would handle it. He said she was protected. Tears came quietly. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just steady. She pressed her palm against her mouth to silence the sound. "I was so stupid," she whispered to the empty room. She had believed the vulnerability in his voice. Believed the crack in his composure. Believed that protection meant safety. Instead, it meant strategy. Across the city, in a house made of glass and silence. He realized she was gone. Her room was empty. Uniform folded. No note. He stood still for a long time. Then he called her phone. No answer. Again. No answer. He checked the security logs. The timestamp confirmed it. She had walked out alone. His jaw tightened. He didn't panic. He calculated. Then he moved. By the time he reached her apartment building, the landlord was arguing loudly in the hallway. "She's behind on rent," the landlord muttered when he saw the tailored suit. 3 days left. He didn't respond to that. Instead, his eyes dropped to the eviction notice taped beside her door. Eviction. Hospital bills stacked on the kitchen table visible through the half-open door. The legal envelope torn open. The article glowing on her cracked phone screen. He picked up the phone. Read the headline. His expression didn't change. But something hardened. He called his legal team immediately. "Pull the internal audit records," he said calmly. "All of them." There was silence on the other end. "And freeze asset transfers connected to the former manager." Another pause. "Yes," he continued. "Now." Within hours, the truth surfaced. Forged timestamps. Altered security logs. Fabricated incident reports. The manager had manipulated the internal system long before the vase broke. The claim filed against her? Backdated. Engineered. Strategic. He had underestimated the desperation of a man about to be exposed. And he had underestimated the cost of letting her hear only half a sentence. By afternoon, a board meeting was scheduled. Press invited. Shareholders present. The former manager sat stiffly at the far end of the long conference table. Confident. Smug. He believed narrative was on his side. Cameras flashed as the owner entered. No raised voice. No anger. Just control. He took his seat. "Let's begin," he said. The manager cleared his throat. "As I've stated, internal misconduct." "Enough." The single word stopped him. Screens behind them lit up. Security footage timestamps. Financial discrepancies. Audit trails. Forgery evidence highlighted in red. Murmurs rippled through the room. The manager's face drained of color. "You falsified internal documentation," the owner said evenly. "You manipulated staff records. You redirected liability to conceal theft." The press scribbled furiously. "And you targeted an employee who refused to participate." The manager opened his mouth. Nothing came out. She did not intentionally damage property, the owner continued. Insurance coverage was processed within hours. No loss was incurred. He let that settle. However, he added, integrity was. Security entered quietly. The manager was escorted out under flashing cameras. And then, he did something no one expected. He remained standing. There will be structural changes, he announced. New staff protection policies. Independent reporting channels. Financial transparency measures. And then, one final statement. The individual falsely accused in this matter will assume leadership over our employee ethics division. A collective intake of breath. Not charity. Not compensation. Authority. Trust. Cameras flashed brighter. Questions shouted from every direction. He ignored them. Because there was only one person whose reaction mattered. He left the building without addressing the media further. Drove directly to her apartment. Knocked once. She opened the door slowly. Eyes red. Legal notice still on the table behind her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he stepped inside. I never hired you to repay a debt, he said quietly. She didn't respond. I hired you because you're the only person I've met who doesn't fear losing everything. Silence filled the room. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was waiting. The room was quiet enough to hear the hum of the refrigerator. No cameras. No board members. No lawyers. Just peeling wallpaper, and two people standing in the middle of everything that had almost broken them. He didn't move closer this time. Didn't calculate distance. Didn't control the space. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and pulled out a folded document. She recognized it immediately. Termination of employment. Gross negligence. The paper that had followed her like a shadow. He held it between his fingers for a moment. Then placed it gently in her hands. I had it sealed, he said. But you still carried it. Her throat tightened. You didn't have to come here, she whispered. Yes, he replied softly. I did. He stepped back. Not imposing. Not commanding. Just present. No contracts, he said. No repayment. No obligation. He reached forward, took the paper from her hands again, and tore it cleanly in half. The sound was small, but decisive. He let the pieces fall into the trash beside her door. You're free, he said. A breath. Completely. No conditions. No strategy. No test. The choice now belonged to her. She looked at him for a long time. At the man who built empires out of caution. At the man who learned trust through loss. At the man who had finally chosen to risk it. You don't need an employee, she said quietly. No. You need someone who won't lie to you. He held her gaze. Yes. She stepped closer. Not because she owed him. Not because she feared him. But because she chose him. I won't come back as staff, she said. A beat. I'll come back as your partner. For the first time. He didn't measure the moment. He simply nodded. And somewhere far from marble floors and shattered porcelain, something else had finally settled into place. The vase had shattered in seconds. But what it broke open was something neither of them expected.